Hello guys, back to a new video. How are you? I hope you're fine. And yes, I'm fine. If you asked that, and if you did not ask that, yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Well, in this video we're actually going to tackle a pretty important question that arose kind of because of the latest part of my journey into this game development stuff, which is Quixel Mixer actually going to replace Blender for my texturing? Well, you'll actually find this out at the end of this video. Or you can just skip it to the chapters button and, press on a conclusion. Because yes, I do give you that option. I don't have you, see through everything because I know it's a very long video. But I do think it's good if you would actually see all this, because it's actually a good way for you to learn more on how to texture with Quixel Mixer, what are the important parts when you have to export a body, because there are some mistakes I do in this video and I do correct them as well. So, it's good for you to know how to avoid and how to fix in case you, get into these problems. And also, I will actually give reasons for which I make my choice, which again, you'll find at the end of the video. But before we actually get into the actual video, there are two things that I want to tell you. First things first, I want to show you this. This is how Scream Team looks so far. I think it's actually a pretty good result, and hopefully it's everything textured, because I did have a pretty harsh time to get things done in time for this video to be done, and I did texture until the end, until I actually render this video you're watching right now. So yeah, quite the limit, if I may say. And also the next thing that I want to ask you is to leave a like if you do like the video, please subscribe if you're not subscribed, and at the end actually tell me which one would you pick, Quixel Mixer or Blender, based on the information you're given. Also, you can tell me other softwares you're using, and also you can share this video for others to share their opinions, or maybe to actually get into Blender or Quixel Mixer. Or, just stay here and watch me. So, without further ado, let's actually get into the video. Okay guys, so in this video I'm going to show you, this is the last part of the texturing that I have to do, and you will help hopefully get to the end result that we got, that I showed you in the introduction, hopefully. Because here's the deal. I'm going to use every single bit of information that I gave you so far to actually create this in Quixel Mixer, to create the last part, which are the arms. So what you have to do is kind of decide for the design, right? So for the full design is gonna be this. Use a site like Cool Colors. I showed it to you before. Coolcolors.co. This is how I got the color palette that I did get to use. Of course, it's up to you if you do want it or not. I did enjoy having it at the end of the day, so I said, hey, why not? But if you don't want it, that's cool as well. Just choose the colors that you want to have. And I said there are different materials for different bodies, because that will help us separate the textures also in Quixel Mixer. So after you did do this, what you gotta do is also choose your UV unwraps. So unwrap your colors, your parts of the body. Sorry, I just correct the knuckle again. Probably this is a different day for you, but it's the same day when I filmed the first Saturday gaming video. That probably was not Saturday. It was probably posted on Friday. I'm sorry for that, but it's not the official one. It's the, let's say, pilot episode. Hopefully you did like it and I can continue it. If not, well, that was a very short-lived series. Now with that actually out of the way, what we gotta do, right? You have to UV unwrap this, and of course choose the colors that you kind of want. I do recommend you to kind of make those bodies metallic, the ones you want metallic, and otherwise you don't want metallic to be non-metallic. The reason for it is because you can see a little better how they will look, and it's better to see, you know, kind of the result. Now it is here, you press A. By the way, hide everything else besides the part you want to export. Press A, make sure the scale is set for all of them. You will have to have the modifiers applied and everything as well. Make sure the geometry is alright and the bevel didn't destroy something. It usually can happen, so make sure everything is fine before you do that. And by the way, apply the modifiers only for duplicates, right? So these are duplicates that I'm gonna apply this geometry to. I have the low poly version of the same bodies here that I don't have the modifiers applied to, so that I can actually keep the raw geometry so that I can use them when optimizing the character. So with this, press A to select them all, and then go to File, Export as an FBX, and choose, you know, the folder that you want to do the exporting. I'm gonna do it right here, and right arms. And here you have to select mesh and just limit to selected object. And now export. And this actually took all the bodies and exported them in an FBX. What an FBX is basically an object, a 3D object file. And now we go into Quixel Mixer, and then press on New Mix, right arms, right here. I did have videos where I showed you how to use Quixel Mixer, but I'm gonna try to explain it pretty well, because again, it's a pretty new software for me as well, but it's pretty easy to use once you kind of get a hang of it. And right here we do have, I should have created the folder actually. It's kind of bad of me that I didn't. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I can. Great. So just load the object. And as you can see, it has some objects to load. And if you did the unwrapping correct, and if you don't have geometry deformations from the modifiers and everything, you should pretty much get the exact same thing that you had in Blender out here, which is exactly what I have, which is really, really good. It means everything got correctly exported. Now, the way this is exported is actually, you can see right here, texture sets were created from materials. This is why it's extremely important for you to choose the materials beforehand. Now what we have to do is create layer sets. The number of layer sets is gonna be the exact same number as materials we set in Blender, right? So for example, I have what, 6, 9, and 11. So I need to create 10 of these. And we have 11 layers. And now on each layer, go and set the target texture set. So for the layer 1 are gonna be the shoulders, which is shoulder 2, which is dumb because it should be shoulder. So actually, let me choose this one. Layer set 2, shoulders 2, layer set 3, shoulder 3, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna skip this part and come back to you with a good result. Okay, and I do think I said everything correctly. The way to do it, first of all, I like to give the material that I want to have for each of them. And what I do is actually, let me put this on the second screen here. So I can actually look at the Blender file while I'm working in Quixel Mixer, so I have a better thinking of what I'm doing. So first things first, what I want to do is actually here in layers set 1, which are going to be just the shoulders, so the big portion of the shoulder here, right? I want to go to the surface layer and choose a metal to actually put it. I worked mostly with aluminium and steel, and actually steel is still kind of my favorite because it's, you know, kind of the most raw material I saw. It has the nicest kind of imperfections and stuff, and I do really like the way it looks when I put the color over it. To put the color, if you do use the cooler.co site that I showed you, you can copy the hex from here, from each color you chose for your color palette, and you can actually introduce the hex right here. And that color will be right there. If not, and you chose them in Blender, what you can do is actually come to materials right here, choose the material you want this part of the mesh to have, go to base color, move this from ASV, which is hue, saturation, and value, to hex, which is again the hex value, and you can just copy these, which for me is actually the same exact one as this one. Let me actually pull this. Did it? I think it stopped working for a second. Yeah. Let me pull this here, and now I can introduce the hex, and as you can see, the exact color is here. Of course, it's gonna look different because I'm using steel. I'm using there are some different indices. Sorry, but it's basically the same exact stuff as you saw in Blender, only better, if you ask me. Now, the second layer set 2 is set to be shoulder 2. Why I'm looking at Blender is because, actually I should show you this as well. I will see which color is set to which if I choose different colors on the same mesh, right? So that's why I do have Blender as well to look at, to kind of remember which should be which. So with this one, I'm actually going to choose aluminum. So I want this to have a little bit of a different texture and a different material. So with this, I will also copy the hex from Blender and just set it right here and apply it. And as you can see, this worked wonderfully well and it looks pretty cool. And now for the third layer set, which is gonna be this part right here, I will do the exact same thing and just go to Blender, get the hex, and then after I choose the material, which is gonna be probably iron, actually. I want to have different materials to just make it seem as if it's created from different parts rather than, it's a whole thing. So with this, I will actually just copy the hex, and this is what I should have, which is kind of this gray, dark gray kind of color, which looks pretty good actually. Alright, so with this being done, I will move to the next thing, which is the upper arms. And actually the upper arms, I'm not sure which one is it. Okay, so upper arms, it's this color right here, so like the blue color. Which means again, I'm going to choose a material. This time is gonna be the steel again. Like this. And if you do use I don't know why this is happening, I don't know if it happens to you as well, but for me in Quixel Mixer, when I use the same material twice, at least twice in a row, what it does, it's actually activating the emission for some reason. So if you do see this, this is not a bug. I did have a problem with this because I started undoing it and I thought that the Quixel Mixer, my Quixel Mixer bugged. And I deleted everything because of that and started over again just to realize it's just the emission being turned on. Turn that off and you'll be fine. You'll be good to go. So again, do the exact same process. Copy the hex. Go to the albedo here, copy the hex here, and now we will have this. I will actually not skip over this, even though you probably will think that this is kind of useless because you can do it yourself. But the reason I'm not going to skip over this, it's because I think it's important for you to kind of see this. Because again, I'm going to do this like the entire process, right? To show you exactly how I created all those materials. So another important thing, I know I specified in the introduction as well, but I'm going to use all the things that I used to create all the different materials on these materials. So applying decals, painting over them, how you can use paint brushes, how you can download them, and so on and so forth, because I think that's the trick to get the perfect materials out for your characters. So for this material, I actually need to go back here. So I'm gonna go again here, choose aluminum. And again, the emission is turned on, isn't it? That's so annoying. I don't understand why it's doing it. And let's set it. So as you can see, now it's kind of respecting the same pattern that I had in Blender, which is exactly what we need. And now let's put the emission as well. So here I actually will want the emission to work. Funny enough. So it really doesn't matter what I'm choosing. Well, I didn't choose actually anything. I'm gonna choose aluminum again, because again, really doesn't matter. Let me just get here and choose this hex. Go to the albedo, put it right in, and nothing happens. The reason nothing happens is because that actually doesn't matter as long as the emission doesn't have the color. And this is the emission that we chose. And as you can see, you can have some options for the emission here if you do so like. You can try, so to brighten it, you usually use either add, I think you should use max or add, really, to make it a little brighter. But it's just a tiny bit, and you can also increase like the intensity. That works out as well. Only don't exaggerate with it. Like this, to me, it's a little too much. Maybe 2, it's a little better. Or 1.5 actually. But other than that, I would recommend not to get too, too crazy with it. It just wouldn't do too well. Of course, by the way, there's one thing that I want to point out. Oh, I think I made a mistake here. Wait, let me check this out. So actually, there's an error I created by mistake, of course. Not like I wanted to do it. I think I only lit this part, and I forgot of this one. So the back of the inside here should also be to be emissive and to have that color. And I totally forgot of that. And the reason that's gonna be a problem, it's actually because I'm actually having to redo this entire process from the moment I export it, because I have to basically export all this again, because the information the materials are giving Quixel Mixer are not gonna be applied for this part here, which is annoying. Yes, but it's my mistake, so I should own it. Let me see if I can actually do it right here. And hopefully it will update, even though I'm sure it's not gonna work. And I forgot something, didn't I? Let's come over here. No, everything is good. Let me see if Quixel Mixer was able to get that. Did it? It did not. Let me go to setup, custom model. Let's try to load this. See if it keeps all the information I gave it right. And it seemed to do a pretty great job. This is why I love working with programs like this. If you're working good enough, clean enough, which I didn't do 100%, but it still works, you will be able to make changes in between programs and still have them work for you, which is definitely good. Good. Well, having this, let me actually look at it. Let me get Blender back on the second screen. Actually, that's the main screen theoretically. And now the next things, the next set of layer should be, oh, it's the lower arm. Okay, didn't expect that one. The lower arm is gonna actually be, again, steel with the same blue color. And just for you to know, this is not, so don't beat yourself over if you don't find the perfect combination or anything like that from the get-go. It took me a lot of tries to get to, this sort of combination. I tried a lot of materials. Actually, that's also why it took so long to create this video, because up until now, all the materials I created I basically had a day where I was UV unwrapping and setting, you know, the whole object, then setting the materials, like the colors for all of them, and choosing the color palette, which actually took a little bit of time. And the second day, I was actually creating the materials, so it was taking a long time to do so. But just so you know, if you do want good results, you have to spend some time. You have to give yourself the time to, you know, try stuff out, get the things out there, and play around with it. Now the flex joints, which are these, I actually do need to create... wait, first I need to get the hacks from Blender. And then let's go to the surface layer. And here I'm going to use a different sort of material. I'm actually going to use a mix. I think at least that's supposed to be mix. And I'm gonna use a rubber like. And I rather like the scratched rubber, like this one. Or actually, wait. It's something else that I like a little better. Is the rubber flooring here. I think it might look a little better. And probably not. Let me scale this. Absolutely not. Looks horrible. Back to the rubber it is then. I don't know, something about it. I don't like it. You don't have to make it perfect, by the way. So you don't have to necessarily have, you know, rubber or whatever. You can play around and maybe find a different, like concrete might work for your character. I don't know. It really depends on it. For me, I just don't really like how the rubber looks. I do think it's more or less my best option so far, though. Let me do this. And actually, let me get to the roughness. And I'm gonna try to make the rubber a little rougher, so it's actually not as reflective. And I think this could actually do. Yeah, I like this. This is pretty cool. Okay, next we'll have the claws. Now the claws are actually kind of being the easiest to do because, I mean, really they're just metal. I didn't even change too much of their color. I made them a little bit darker actually in Blender, but when I did the legs, like the support for the wheels, I realized that I think iron and like the metal look actually looks better on it, because it just makes it look a little more industrial. So I'm going to probably leave it like this. Let me actually try to change this one. Actually, this looks pretty good. Not gonna lie to you. Yeah, this works. So I'm gonna save this. By the way, save your work, please. That will help you out a lot. It's important to save your work. What else? The rod. Well, the rod is actually probably the same material as the joint. But just to make sure. Well, this is gonna be aluminum. It's aluminum. Why am I dumb? I'm dumb because I'm not aluminum. And it's here. And yes, that was a really, really bad joke, which probably did here. Good. Now, I keep trying to select the 3D objects like in Blender for some reason. I still have that stuck to me. Now the spring, it's actually the last thing I have to do. And actually I don't know what material I should do this from. Probably I'm actually going to do like an anodized aluminum, because it's going to look a little bit more rough, more than the metal. Having this, you're kind of set to be able to actually get the materials to look wonderful. So we need to do this a little bit like, you have to keep in mind how the other materials look like. And also you should really think about like the story behind it. So the reason I'm creating this like more rough, painted over kind of robot is because it's supposed to be kind of like a not apocalyptic necessarily, but like a cyberpunkish kind of world in the future. And this is supposed to be like an emergency droid or something. And you know, people would screw with it and you know, paint over it, do stuff to it, and it'll be pretty scratched, pretty rough around the edges because of the emergencies, because of everything it did. And I think this looks really good. So you have to make the arms to look also kind of to match the rest of the body, which is not that easy, but we will be able to do it. And I'll show you exactly how to do so. We set all the materials right, which, I mean, that's half of the job, kind of. Basically, if you do know what the materials and the colors will be, you're kind of set to go, because from here on out, you're just gonna put on the details and the stuff that actually makes this your own stuff, and also kind of makes it, you know, look much better. So as you can see, and I did talk about this before, you can check out, you know, my last videos, especially my last video. It's not about this, but it's still pretty good, which actually, you know, I'm talking about how good the actual materials themselves are, because as you can see, this is the material, the steel by itself, and it still looks pretty good because it still has some problems, because no material is perfect in the real world. So right now we're actually looking at this part right here. So as you can see, layer set 1 has the shoulders, which is the blue part right here. So we want to make that to match our body. Now, of course, what that really means, if you have the material and the color, it's kind of there, but you do need to put on some more stuff. So first things first, how I like to start this after the material is there, put some imperfections on, because you kind of want your material to feel, you know, worn out, to have some defects. If you don't want to be too obvious, you can put some grudges or some where were they, like the fingerprints or leaks or something, which is a little like this one, this leakage here, or the dust. It's a little less obvious, but you still have it there, and it still gives you a little bit of that realism. However, especially since we have metal, what I like to use is some scratch painted metal imperfections, because this, as you can see, gives me a pretty good detail. The problem is, it comes with an albedo. Do we want that? Well, no, we actually don't. And also the metalness, and I'll explain everything along the way. Basically, you don't want the albedo because it will mix with you know, the other colors of the material, and we don't want that. We want to keep the material as is. We just want it to have some parts where it doesn't look as good. So the albedo is turned off because we don't need that. The metalness, you have to set it from normal to overlay. What overlay will do is basically take it and tell it, you know what, you don't have to be here, because you can take the information from the guy that's you know, under you, which is our steel. So the metalness will be just like the one, like the steel, and the roughness, we will do the exact same thing. And you will say, well, I can't really see the details anymore. And if you can actually play with the contrast, as you can see, you can make those scratches appear more obvious. So the more the contrast is set to, and you can also set the number to whatever you like. So for example, I can write here 5, and as you can see, it's very, very, very noticeable now. Of course, I'm not gonna want that. I'm gonna be somewhere around like 2. I think it actually was doing a pretty good job. So as you can see, we have a lot of this. Now you can do something more with this and actually play with it. Either height frequency, either placement. This is the one I'm actually usually using. And you can play either increase the scale or decrease the scale to make them look more, you know, more abundant. Like they're the smaller scratches, but they're all over the place. Now we don't really want that. I'm gonna keep this to like a 0.95. It's not gonna be as big of a difference. as it was previously, but it doesn't really matter because usually these work pretty flawless to begin with. As you can actually see, kind of the whole body has this worn out, you know, look to it, because this was supposed to actually go to kind of a lot of stuff already, which is why it's kind of used up, it's kind of worn out. However, it's still our, you know, details that actually matter. So yeah, that's what set it apart from everything else. Now, what we gotta do, and sorry if you hear some sounds, there's someone that works behind me, and yeah, I cannot really control that. So, as you can see, the scratches look good enough already, which is fine. However, there are two things that we need to do. First things first, as I did to the body, and you can see it right here, I did some rust on the edges, and that's what we'll have to do for the arms as well, because it just makes sense, you know, if one part of the body kind of has that, for the rest of it to kind of have it as well, even though I didn't do it for the legs, but because of the dust and because it's such a small part, you won't see it. However, on the shoulders, it's kind of in your face, you'll see it, so I do recommend you to do it, to make it at least similar to the body, not necessarily to do the exact same thing. So first things first, what you gotta do is we will need to get a rust material, which is actually pretty easy. So get a surface layer and just write rust. You'll find it in metals anyway, but just take whatever rust you like. So rust, metal shit, good enough for me. And this is what will happen basically. It will just fill it, well, kind of hard, but it will fill it with rust, and that's kind of it. But now we don't want that, of course, because that would be, you know, overkilling it. What we do need is to actually tell it where to be, and for that we use a mask stack. So the mask stack will actually help us decide where we want our rust to be. And for that we will use from add mask component to get a curvature. And now press 9 on your keyboard, not from the numpad, from the keyboard. That's actually important. And now you can actually see how the mask will affect our materials. So play with the levels until you get something kind of about this. And depending on how intense you want your rust to be, you will, you know, get your level closer or not as close. So something kind of like this should do pretty well. But of course we don't want, because this is how this looks. And it doesn't look bad, but I don't want it to be like this. I don't want it to be... It's almost kind of too perfect. And I hate that. I don't want it to be perfect. So what we want to do is actually add also a noise and a purling noise. I think you did hear me using that before, also in Quixel Mixer and in GIMP, because it's basically the same noise texture we use in Blender. So what you gotta do, again, go with 9 to actually see the mask. First things first, set the noise. So when you press on any of these masks, here you will have the opacity of that said mask and the way it interacts with the other masks. So you don't want it to be normal, because basically what this will do is set this mask on top of the other mask, covering it completely. We don't want that. We actually want this to only affect our body where the white of the curvature, so this part, is. So the noise has to only be on the white color here. To do that, what you need to set is to set this to multiply. And afterwards, also press Alt, left click and set this down here, right? To affect the curvature. That's actually not a must, and the reason you don't see it is because I press on 0, which, if you do remember, 0 is showing you the active mask, which is right now the noise. If I press on 9, it shows me the entire masks that I have, so basically how these interact. So actually, if I don't have this, it doesn't affect it completely. Like in this case, it doesn't really matter, but it usually helps because it tells it exactly this has to be affected by this, and that is it. And now you can actually see, if I can actually get close enough without destroying everything, you can see that the noise actually affects us quite a bit, but we don't want it to affect like this. We want the noise to be smaller. We want, to have small bits. And for that, we have to increase, first of all, the octaves. The frequency of it has to also, of course, be increased. The amplitude, and as you can see already, it looks pretty good. The lacunarity, I always have a hard time pronouncing this, and the persistence. Now the persistence, in my opinion, doesn't have to be more than like a 0.75, maybe a 0.8, because if you go with it too much, it's extremely visible, like it's extremely unbelievable if you ask me. Of course, that's just my opinion, it doesn't have to be that way, but I think it just looks much better like this. It's a little more like a worn out for actual, like for real kind of vibe. And if you did it for this one, you kind of have to do for the rest of the body as well. So do take that in consideration. When you affect one of the bodies, you have to affect all of them. And when you have a body that actually has different materials, all of the materials kind of have to have either the same imperfections, either imperfections that kind of make sense to be there. So now having the rust, what else can we do? We do have scratches and it does look pretty well, but we can make it look a little better with two more things, no more than that. One, I found that, let me actually get my blender here, putting text, like putting, you know, like not tattoos, but like graffitis and like texts and signs and all these stickers and stuff help a lot because it makes your character and the object itself be very believable, like actually make a lot of sense. And I personally like it as well, I can't lie about it. So what I will do is actually kind of do the same thing for oh, sorry, I pressed on the wrong one. So do the same thing for my materials here. So to do that, what I will want to do is actually go on Google and probably go on Pixabay. That's my favorite place to kind of get stickers and stuff. So let's download this and let's get the smallest resolution because we don't care. Props to Criozaver? I don't know. But props to him because here's the reason we're getting this. So what we need to do, well, it's first things first. Let me just set this in a folder I can actually use. Now I have everything set up. Now the first thing that we need to do is actually open GIMP before anything else, because there are two things we need to do. So here's the deal. You can either use this as a paintbrush so that you kind of paint with that, but there is one problem, at least I don't know a solution for it right now. It can only have one color, the color that is set by the brush. You can assign different colors for different parts of the sticker, which is very annoying. So taking the sticker from Pixabay and having it to just play around with it, it's not really enough, right? We need to have some things to be working with, because here's the deal. Yes, you can basically take that and use it as a paintbrush, but again, you can only have one color. However, you can also use that picture as a decal. I did show you before how to do it, however, you need to have a roughness map and a displacement map, and also an opacity map. So you have to have 3 maps to be able to use that as a decal, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. If I go into Quixel Mixer right now, okay, and let's say I want to put that decal. So as I taught you, what we will do is get a solid color, then you'll go to the albedo and you will try to load that. And as you can see, I have the picture right here and it looks pretty okay. Of course, you can scale it down if you do like so. Setting it to freeform usually works better. And now 0.1 should kind of do the trick. And then you'll have to play around with its values, because you will need to have this, you know, actually be part of what where we need it to be. Yes, it's a little bit annoying when you have to, you know, play around with it like this, but honestly, I couldn't figure out a way around this. And here's the problem I was talking about. So I have the decal, I have the picture, and the reason I told you to be a smaller picture, it's because as you can actually kind of see already. Let me just set it kind of there. And a little bit like here. And it looks pretty okay. So here's the deal. And we can make this a point. Okay, 0.15. 0.14. 0.12. Good enough. As you can see, we have a black background. And why is that? Because our picture is actually a PNG. As you can actually look at it, it has a transparent background. However, Quixel Mixer doesn't understand that. So it still takes it as if it's a black background and it's going to show it as a black background. So what you gotta do is actually create an opacity mask, which is actually pretty easy to create using GIMP or Photoshop or really any video editor. So what you gotta do is go in GIMP, put the picture in there, and then select the background, which shouldn't be the hardest thing ever. And this is kind of it, right? Now let's look at the selection, and this is it, but we want the reverse of that. The reason is because we will want, so let me select, invert, we want to make this part white, and you'll see exactly why in just a second. Fill this, and then edit, sorry, not edit file, export as, and we have it as a eggplant, whatever. And then here, write opaque from opacity. You can also save it as a JPEG, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is to have this, and the reason for it, when you go to Quixel Mixer, you can turn on opacity and then load this picture we've created, and as you can see, it actually does have the exact contour, and now this is free from its background, because the background basically doesn't interact at all with it, which is actually exactly what we needed. Let me actually put this, I think here it's a little bit of a better option. Kind of like this, maybe a 0.11. Move it slightly. Like kind of there. 0.0055. 0.00, I don't know, 52 maybe. It's a lot about, you know, trial and error with this, which I kind of hate a little bit about it. Because it's like, yeah, okay, you know, I'll do it, but it's still a little annoying. Okay, kind of like this, it looks good, it looks there. So how do we do it from here? Why do we need more GIMP? Well, because, let me put this back to color. Now we have the color, now we have the opacity, we need the roughness and displacement and metalness, because here's the deal. We actually could leave it like this. This is perfectly fine. However, if you do want to have a little bit of a bump, I can actually show you how to do this, because if you do look into our Blender file here, you will notice that for the screen, for the radio, these two actually do have some normals, like they're a little bit carved in. And the way to get that, right, is to actually go here. So by having the image selected, make sure there's no selection, it's everything, because that's what we need. Go to color, desaturate, and make it a black and white picture. And you can also enhance the shadows for a little bit of a better experience for us with a roughness. And now file, again, export as, and have this as a roughness. So here's the deal. Do you need to do this? No, not necessarily. For example, if you do like what you got here, that's it. Job is over, you have it, we can deal with the rest afterwards. However, if you do want a little bit more from it, here's why you need all this. Because now I can actually come in here and actually tell this we do have a metalness map. Because metal, roughness, all these are black and white pictures. And basically, well, black and white maps, but you can use them as pictures as well. Same with displacement. which is what we're really doing here. We're taking this and basically helping ourselves get this. And also you can get the normals to work for us with this as well, because the normals right now are non-existent. You have a solid color with no normals in there. However, you can generate them from displacement. And as you can see, the actual normals do exist now. And you can set this to like a 0.05, and it actually looks pretty good. I will set this actually to a 0.0525, and it looks pretty sick. So of course you can actually invert the source to actually be, I think right now it's carved like inside the metal instead of being bumped out. Am I mistaken? I don't think I am. No, yeah, now it's out. So I'll leave it like this because that's what I want to do. But this is kind of the point. This is the way you can use this, and it's pretty cool. However, there's a second way, and I did talk about it. It's the actual painting, which I did use a lot for writing. So writing is actually almost all of it. It's created with that. And some signs, for example, this OK, this sign here, those are created, even this duck, are created with a paintbrush, because there's no reason, if I don't want displacement and all that. Well, actually, no, you still get displacement if you don't want color. I mean, like different colors, you don't need that. So here's how we use that one. And sorry, I needed the coffee sip. So I'm going to add a paint layer, right? And now I need something to actually be my mask, for example, right? And I keep writing my name all over this, and I'll keep doing it. So let's actually write my name on this. So with this paint here, go to your brush and you can press on load image. So let me get here. And as you can see, there are a lot of images and references I used, which, by the way, I do totally recommend you to have and to use, because I think that's what sets stuff apart, right? Like, this is the biggest thing, in my opinion, that I discovered for myself at least. And now I can write with this name. And you might ask yourself, like, how did I get this, right? Did I use a program? Yes, which is open right now, and it's GIMP. You can just come here on GIMP. I usually create a file that is 512 by 512 pixels. I'm using a transparency to have an alpha channel, and I'll make this transparent, and afterwards I just write the text, like, I don't know, I'm just gonna write text, and then I choose a font. Usually I go on 1001 font, the link I did show you before, but it's not a necessity. You don't have to necessarily do that. I just take this, export it as a file. You need just one picture. That's it, a black and white picture, and works good enough. And then you can actually come down here and see what it gives you. So right now you will set an albedo, which is the color of the text, a displacement. So if I were to actually press click now, as you can see, this actually is carved in my robot, and I actually pressed it by mistake one more time, which disrupted my entire geometry. As you can see, it does show its effect right here. For the rust, I didn't realize to actually explain you that one. For the rust, don't use the displacement. The displacement is still turned on, and I can notice it. The way I notice it, it's because it's on the corners where we have the UV wrapping. So basically our kind of like textures, interact with each other. Let's pick, so yeah, the islands of the UV map have to be more or less seamless, right? And we have seams. We know we have seams, which are covered with rust, and that works in our favor. However, when we do use displacement on it, as you can see, if the displacement is too big, and in this case it's actually pretty small, but it doesn't matter, because it's on the seam, which actually disrupts our geometry. So I usually turn this off and just leave the normals to do their magic, and it usually works more than fine. Why? Because it doesn't really matter, really. Okay, let's turn this back on and let's save, because for some reason apparently Quixel Mixer decided to work really harsh at this point, and I'm pretty afraid of a crash. So with this here, let me go back to the paint. And let me first of all erase that text, because I don't really want it. So just go to erase. I usually use the square to be fully black, fully white, and delete everything. Good. So we don't want that yet. We want to do some adjustments. First things first, you can adjust like the side, the color, all those good stuff, right? Which is good. That's perfectly fine. However, we can also either disable displacement, and you kind of want that when you want to be like a paint stuff, which in my case, I kind of want to have that. So I'll I'll basically ignore the displacement, so to speak. And also the metalness, because this is not going to be a metallic body. I don't care about the metal information, so just keep it out of there. So what I need right now, it's a text, and to decide on the color. The color, I want it to just be white, so that's kind of it. And I'm just going to paint it over, which looks good. Looks good to me. But it's a little bit inclined. So let me try to set this as straight as possible, which this is not. I don't know what I was doing. Kind of like this. And let's try to size this a little bit. So go to 400. This should kind of do. Okay, much better. So with this here, it looks okay, but how can you get more realistic than that? Well, paint over time, especially on a worn out object, which ours is, as you can see, kind of wears out. We're right here, and you can actually see that this text is a little bit, scrubbed off. Like, you can actually see that it's not fully there. And the way I did that is by actually using the eraser and use a damage brush. If you don't remember how to get it, just come on the online store from Quixel Mixer. Right brush, all these are free, by the way, you can just download them. And get whatever damage or grunge or whatever, really. Usually I use scratches like this. Download one and then size it pretty big. And then just start painting. And as you can see, this will actually make our name be kinda less visible. And it's also pretty random because, well, it's scratches that are not exactly the most uniform stuff ever, which is perfect because that way we can actually kind of make this look super realistic, and that's exactly what we need. Okay, so we have this. We're part of the way done with our shoulders, right? Well, not exactly. We still need two more things. First, we will need to actually have another paint layer because I'm actually going to do some damage. But this damage is actually gonna be rust again. However, the reason I'm using this, so let me use this rusty metal. Actually, no, I don't need this. I'll show you this method as well, but I'm actually just using the rust, well, the paint really. And what I want is the displacement to be turned on. Let's put this to like a 0.0. Usually I go with a 0.02. It should kind of work. And what you want to do is to set the albedo to somewhere kind of here, somewhere kind of where rust would, be. And then just paint stuff. So as you can see, this actually scratches our body. By the way, don't don't draw this over where our UV unwrapping is happening. I did tell this to you before, but because if you do this, as you can see right here, this actually disrupts our geometry, and we absolutely try to avoid that as much as possible. The reason this is such a useful trick, it's because this actually gives even more, you know, of a realistic feeling to our object, because now not only we have a little bit of gradients, and I think I did too much there, didn't I? Yeah, because it looked a little bit too much. So try to have, you know, either a smaller brush, and let me actually do that. So like a 250 maybe, and yeah, the size jitter and the angle, also the flow, try to change them. Reason being, well, really you want them to be as random as possible. And just do this, just create some scratches, just make it. Also, it does help, at least this is the way I found it pretty useful. Use different brushes, so even if they theoretically do the same thing, using different scratch brushes is actually pretty helpful, because that way you can actually, you know, do much better. So don't you know, again, don't paint over the parts where you know it's UV unwrapped, because if you do that, it might create some artifacts we will try to avoid in time. Let me change the brush really quickly. Kind of like this. So this should do pretty well. Of course, you can also get the size to be a little bigger and get close enough to this so that you don't really disrupt it, but at the same time make a little more damage than you would be able to in general. See? Kind of like this. And again, avoid the parts that we know are going to be troublesome for us. So this is not exactly the easiest one to paint over, because really it's a pretty small piece. The rest of the body was way easier in terms of that to do. But it's basically kind of over. Like, this is basically kind of it. Of course, you can actually also do it down here one more time. And that is kind of it. Now, one more thing I do like to do is actually use another thing, which is a method you can also get scratches, but this time I'm going to use it to get some dirt in. So what I will do is actually add soil material, and I have to delete the rust for that to happen. And let's get this dirty soil ground. Now, of course, this will first destroy my geometry. The reason being, it has displacement. So deactivate its displacement because we don't care about it. And now go to mask stack, add a texture map, which will make everything black. So now nothing really is there. Now with this, add a paint mask. And now, again, I used the damage tool, so scratches again. But I also found pretty useful to use some dirt brushes. Those are a little better in terms of how it looks, but it doesn't really matter. And now, with the value to either full, full color, or just like a little bit less noticeable, you can spread this soil or, dirt or whatever you chose to actually look a little bit more interesting. And again, this one you can actually pay kind of whatever you want, because this is actually not using displacement. So that means it's not affecting our geometry, which in even better terms means we can use it free of any consequences, basically. And I love to hear that. This actually is beautiful. And honestly, I think I kind of overdid it with this one. So again, I'm gonna use an erase tool, take the damage, and I'm gonna try to erase some of the dirt. And actually maybe use the same one. It's not this one, it's this one, I think. To not have such a pattern, a repeatable pattern all over the place. So this actually creates some dirt over our material. Now, of course, you kind of have to repeat the process for this one. Now, if it's the same body when you UV unwrapped it, basically these materials might transfer from one to the other, which is actually pretty useful because you don't have to work twice. In this case, for these ones, it's not, so I will need to go back to the paint where we did the scratches and actually create some more. But again, I'll have to pay attention not to disrupt anything. Good, so having this now, is it over? Well, yeah, kind of. So on this side, I don't have to use like stickers or anything else because no one will actually notice it because, I mean, you can't really. And on this side here, we can actually, again, write our, well, a text, not necessarily our name. This is what I will do, but, you know, you don't have to do the exact same thing. So let me light this part. So again, shift right click to be able to light. And again, let's get the first paint. And let me use that brush again with my name. And the angle I need to, so first set these to 0, because otherwise it will jitter all over the place. And we don't want that. So setting this to perfectly white, now this placement, and now we can also kind of get this to like 400. This should do pretty well. And somewhere kind of around here should do. And it does. It does work pretty well. And now, actually the decay should do also a good job. Yeah. Good. And this is also done perfectly fine. Let me save this. And the more materials and parts you have, the more it will take to actually save. It kind of makes sense. So yeah. Now I just realized how creepy it looks for you, because it's like you see only part of my face. So I'm sorry for that. But again, it was the only way to do it, at least for now. Good. So this is basically done. I might get in and, I don't know, maybe put something else, even though I kind of do that. Oh, also I don't really like this here. Again, exaggerating with stuff, not exactly the best thing. So I totally do suggest you to not do that. Try to take as little as possible. So make things not look repetitive. Oh, and this is actually not... Wait. Because I didn't do a good job there. I need to write this. To delete this, sorry. Where is the decay one? Here. So this is the soil. So taking this down like this, it's much better, as you can actually get to see. Because it looks much better, much more natural. Natural? It's what I wanted to say. But my English got out of hand there. So yeah, don't exaggerate too much with this. Keep things, you know, simple. So for example here, let's use some grunge. It's fine if you make it, you know, a little more, because again, we can delete it afterwards. I think it's funny that right after I said, don't exaggerate with stuff. I'm literally coming in and putting like 100 more times the dirt I did in the last part. But again, delete it afterwards if you feel like it. If you don't, it's fine. Whatever suits your character and your scene better, because this is the end of the way you have to think about this, right? Does it fit your scene? Does the scene make sense? Does the dirt make sense to be there? And so on and so forth. These are the things that you need to kind of think of when you're creating your materials like this. So this is actually doing pretty well. And I'm gonna save one more time. And now I can leave this as it is. And the reason I have only one sticker on one side is because I kind of want to make this look a little bit apart. So to actually look a little bit different one from the other. And actually, I can take this second one. Get another. Actually, let me paint on this one. It doesn't really matter. And let me use something again we did use before, which is the robot sign. Coming back, I'm actually going to put one more paint layer because for some reason, again, that creates some really creepy, not creepy, but annoying errors that honestly I can just avoid altogether by doing this. So just write the name here. Of course, again, the displacement is gonna be a big problem, so no displacement needed. And I'm gonna create this with a pretty simple color that we already know of, which is this one, but instead of actually taking it from there, let me just replace it with my hex, and that is kind of it, and this will do just fine. Again, let's save this, and now this looks perfectly fine. It has the imperfections, it has the stickers, it has basically every single little detail that it needed to have. And yeah, this is really kind of the way you have to do this. Now, for the other parts, which is, for example, let's say the iron here, right? The irony of the iron. I'm really sorry for that. I needed to say it, okay? It was in my head. I needed to say this joke. So, here's the deal. As I just mentioned, you need now to have this to actually make sense, because it's still part of the same body as the shoulders, so this has to look good. And again, Quixel makes a really, I guess it doesn't like OBS because it doesn't normally move like this. But right now it's absolutely horrendous. I can barely move my my camera, and the materials also look really distorted. What the hell? Let me try maybe to close this. Yes, this might help. It helps a lot. Okay, so actually I don't think I wanted that one. Not layer 1, I need layer 1. The reason we need layer 1, it's because we need to, again, make this seem it's part of the same body, because it is, theoretically. So first things first, what we need to have is imperfections, right? So let me check. Shoulder 3, which is this one, yeah. Shoulder 2 is all the yellowish stuff here. So go to surface layer and let's get imperfection. And of course we go again for a scratch. It doesn't have to be necessarily the same one. Sure, it probably makes a little more sense because it will kind of look the same, but even if it's not, no one will really notice, and actually it might look a little better because it will create a little bit of a difference. Now, of course, set the metalness and the roughness to overlay to make sure this works, and play with the contrast of the roughness. 1.2 should work to make this a little more contrasty, but not that big of a deal. Good, good. Okay, so we have this. This is pretty fine. This is pretty well. Now, the thing that I want to do on this one, we have a little more room to work with, right? So I want to do two things. First things first, I'm gonna put some stickers on. So the first sticker that I'll put is actually gonna be a text that is just gonna be written something like iron forever, or I don't know, iron something, to kind of make sense, because like this is the material used, so there is that. Actually, I'm going to use the text. Well, the font actually I can set afterwards. And the text will probably be iron R 0740. For those that don't know, this is a code for materials. Actually, for colors, I think. Colors and materials. I don't know. Anyway, and I shouldn't have done this because I'm actually going to have to set this one more time. So I can't really do this because I have to set this the font, right? I should have actually chosen this before. So by selecting all these, you can actually just go in, and usually it should work. Just select this and then select the font. For some reason it doesn't work this time, which kind of annoyed me. So again, iron R0740. This is not the code. It's 7040. Yeah, this looks more like it. Okay, and actually I like how this looks. Let me get this here. Scale it up. Something like this should work. And now I can just export this. And I'll just say iron E. And now with this here, I can actually just go back in Quixel Mixer. And with this, actually, I can just add a paint layer where we can actually use, instead of the robot one, the iron one. And we can also actually carve this in, which is already set, and a 0.05 with a color that is, you know, a little bit of a lighter iron stuff. And I think this actually looks pretty sick. And this, of course, has to be for both of them, because I don't know, I just want it to be that way. And this actually looks pretty goddamn good. Now, of course, we could be deleting some of it, but I'm actually not gonna do that. I'm gonna do something different. I'm going to actually get a damage brush. So I'm still gonna use that trick, but instead of actually deleting stuff, I'm going to put stuff in. Okay? Did I disable the displacement there? Wait. Was I that dumb? I was that dumb. Great for me. So all my work was for nothing, wasn't it? Let me actually get this a little lighter. And so annoying when I'm trying to do something, it actually works, and then I realize, well, I did it wrong. This looks better, actually. I like it. But let me set this way smaller. Yeah. Much better. Because that way I can actually use this, you know, like it's melted into it. And it just makes a little more sense for me. I'm sorry, but my mouse is getting crazy. So I'm trying to get it, you know, get it out, but my mouse says, no, just keep going forward. Good. Now both of the things have the text. And again, I don't want to use just that. Let me actually just save it for a second there so that it looks and it stays that way. What I want to do now is just go get the damage. Let me fill this in with some like dirty little thing, right? So maybe something kind of like this should do. It doesn't have to be super obvious. And that's just a note for, you know, people that want to do this. Don't make stuff necessarily super obvious. It doesn't have to be. It's good enough just to have enough detail. For example, this is way too much. See what I'm saying? Just a tiny bit. Maybe it's not as show-off-ish, but it looks pretty goddamn good when you're looking at the full spectrum of things. And now we can actually also erase this with a little bit of decay just to make it seem even more random. Which again, yes, it's basically the same process we did use a second ago. Reason? It has to kind of be the same thing. Good. With this being done, we are actually going to move a little bit on this one, on the front part, which actually has some parts that I don't like. And this might be because of the UV unwraps. I think they were set pretty dumb. Either that, either my brush got here. So this I'm going to kind of take out as well. And now it still looks good, but it's less messy. It's perfect. Good. So we have this perfectly fine. Absolutely wonderful. Now another thing we need to do, and actually we should have done this before, it's actually the rust. As I did say, we need to keep the same kind of things. So let's try to actually put the rust back, and I'm gonna try to get the same exact material. So I think it's this one, rusted metal sheet that we used. Let's get this placement out of the way. And when you get this a second time, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but emission will be turned on. Don't ask me why, I don't fully understand that, but it just is. So this is kind of it, right? And with this actually being here, what we need to do is again use the mask stack, go to curvature, press 9 to actually see what you're doing, and then just play around with the values to make sure you have enough of the values that you want. Again, probably nice should do the trick. Then play with the values just enough. And this should look, and it does look, absolutely wonderful. So also let's save this. And now while that is getting saved, let me get one more sticker out because I love them and because why not? And in case someone does wonder what's the idea with, oh, I love the penguin. What's the idea with the stickers? Like, why am I using them? Well, the overall idea really, it's I like them. And besides the fact that I do like them, it's also the fact that it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, because again, we're talking about a rusted and a worn out robot that is supposed to be like helping out and stuff. Well, here's the deal. If you do have that, most probably people will mess around with it, which is why I did take this into consideration when I, was creating this. And the whole story is supposed to be like, this robot helps out, even though people are kind of jerks and they're kind of using stuff and, kind of spraying on it and so on and so forth. Let me just get these things. So I need to get the sticker in a folder. So I have a whole folder with stickers, and I do advise you guys to work as clean as possible, because that's actually a pretty, at least I found out over the time, that it's a very important thing. If you work messy, it's actually going to not help you out too much. It's gonna create a lot of problems along the way, because you will try to find either things you used before, which is gonna be pretty hard to do considering you don't know how to get to them. Also, it's just creating a much easier workflow for you. So even though maybe you still can find stuff, this is a little easier to speed up your process. Okay, this is gonna be the roughness map for our penguin. So I know I wrote it absolutely dumbly, but it's fine. And now let's select the background, select, invert, edit, and fill this with the foreground color. And now file, export as, and this will be opacity. Good. So basically we do have everything we need, which is perfectly fine. And now we need to actually get this. So a solid material over this. The albedo will actually be our original picture. Then of course we need to get its opacity to work with our opacity. And then for now we can actually just keep working with this until we get the results we need, right? So freeform, and now we need to get this where we good. So we have it here. And now, well, let's say this is like a 0.15. Perfect. That actually fits way better than I thought. So let me get this up here. Maybe have this like a minus 0.79. I think it's a little more center there. And now with this here, you know, you can either make it super metallic or actually leave it as it is, because it can just be a sticker. It doesn't have to be necessarily like all the other things. Or we can actually give it its own vibe and make it, you know, be both metallic and non-metallic in different parts, considering its well, its state. And this actually I think looks pretty good. Of course, we can give displacement to this. And normal can be generated from this. And actually I think this is the reason displacement is so actually the things are working so harsh, because it's pretty hard for it. 0.01 should do, and it looks pretty good. And yeah, this actually looks pretty fine, at least as far as I'm concerned. Of course, if you like different stuff, you know, absolutely go for it, do it. I'm just basically showing you like the method. And this is one thing I do want you to kind of get the most out of, right? It's the fact that this is supposed to just be the method. I don't really want you to copy this. So if you did not check out my latest video, which by the way I think you should, because it's a pretty fun video and I do totally love to make those kind of videos. So I hope you'll tell me if you do like those as well or not. But what I wanted to actually say, it's the fact that you can't, well, not that you can't, but you shouldn't actually copy what I'm doing. You should create your own materials. The big reason is because after I'm done, so when this video is posted, the whole material pack should be over with. I'm going to post all the materials along with the 3D geometry that I have right now for my body, probably in a link on WeTransfer, and you guys for 7 days can get it for free. The reason I'm doing that, again, it's because you guys had to wait quite a little bit for me to get this video up, and I think I kinda you know, am a little bit in a debt to you. So having this, now I can actually use again a paint, and I can paint that pumpkin, sorry, over here. The reason I made it black and white, by the way, if you do wonder, it's because it did happen to me before to sometimes work with a color image. Sometimes it needed it to be transformed into a black and white color image. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be able to create the paint. I don't really understand the reasoning behind it. I just know it did. And that was kind of that. And I need to go here. Displacement, yeah, doesn't exist, which is good. And this actually, I still want it to be pretty orange. And no metalness, thank you. And I should use this. Size it. This. looks sick. Come on, that looks amazing. This is one of the best things I have, and this is why a black and white picture works the best, because it does actually help you out a little bit, because it knows where to make it darker and where to make it brighter, and it looks perfectly well overall, right? Also this. Oh, I need to use the eraser. Eraser. Sorry, I'm listening to Anjiron a lot. And of course, you can use the decay. And I like a lot of vibe it gives. Looks pretty cool. I like it. Let's also use like some scratches. It definitely sticks around. Actually, a little too much. What's going on? Well, the albedo was now on. That's what's going on. So let's go actually back, because I didn't do a good job. What's going on? Okay. Okay, not too much. And there you go. Let me actually get the scratches. So try to combine these. Don't just use one brush. Try to, use a combination of brushes. And this looks sick. This looks absolutely fantastic. And I think this is due to the fact that this all makes kind of sense, right? Good. So we have basically every single little thing we want. We can actually do something more over here, but I'm gonna figure out what afterwards. For now, what I want to do is to use the well, not this one, layer 3 actually. Layer 3, which is not layer 3, sorry, layer 2. So layer 2, which is supposed to be this one right here. First things first, again, imperfections. But because this one is a different material and a different color, I'm gonna use actually something else, which is a grunge map. This one looks pretty good. And again, I think emission is turned on, isn't it? No, it's not. But I'm going to set this. And again, play with the contrast. And actually, I'm gonna set it to the max. But this one, I'm not gonna do as many things, because really, it's not a lot I can do to it. As you can see, the material itself already works in my favor, and this actually looks pretty good already. Maybe I'm going to throw like a text in there or something. I don't know. But for now, I'm gonna leave it just like this. And this is really kind of it. Now, I could actually keep you around, and this is already a pretty long video. Considering we will do the same thing, right? So these are the whole methods I used. So use paint, use decals, and try a combination of all these things. Use different brushes, and also use, like mask stacks to try to put things over each other and actually, put layer over layer of stuff so that it actually looks pretty good. I'm going to show you the overall, like the end of my work, but these are the methods, like the entire list of methods I used to get to these results, which I would say personally it looks pretty good. I'm super happy with the result. I'm super happy with the way my character looks. I hope it didn't freeze. Again, for me, it froze for a second, the OBS. I don't know what's going on. I think it's because of Blender, actually. And I mean, I have a lot of stuff open. I know that one, but still. So as you can see, I do still have a few things to work on. So the ears are not like completely over. I'm working on them right now, along with the arms, and the last stuff is going to be the support for the legs. And that is kind of it. We're going to be done. And again, hopefully by the time I'm posting this video, everything will be over, I can show it to you guys. And probably not in the day when I'm gonna post the video, but the second day, for sure, you will be able to find the link towards the... where I'm gonna post it and probably have a little video or short about it, where I'm going to talk about, you know, where you can get and how you can get the materials I created along with the geometry, so that you can actually have this and, you know, play along with it if you do so like. So now I can actually... I know I'm just keeping you around a little bit now, but I'm trying to figure if I want to do anything else. You know what? Let's put one more text in there. Hopefully you don't hate me by now. But, so okay, let's create a layer here and then edit and clear. And what kind of font we would like? Well, this more animated one. Rescuer. This actually... why didn't I think about this before? This actually fits a lot with the theme of my character, and I did not think to put it around. Good. Now I have this, so I can actually put a paint. Go here, load an image, and... okay, first things first, what color do I want? Do I want to leave it like this? Maybe a little less wide? And let's actually make it pop off a little bit. Increase the size of it. Let's see how this looks. This looks pretty sick, but because it's like this, how about we do it this way? Huh? Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? How does it look without the displacement now? Okay, not as cool, if you ask me. How about a bright yellow? I think it looks like trash. Yes, it does indeed. How about that one? Like this? And this actually doesn't look bad at all. And we can also have it with some displacement in there. Hello there. This looks good. Alright, so while I was actually doing the next parts, so probably you thought, oh, I'm ending the video here. Yeah, almost. But there's one more thing that I did figure out, which is when we actually do the roughs on the edges and the cavities, so don't forget, while using the curvature, we put a noise to actually create. And actually, let me put the material here to see it and see a little bit of the difference. We put the curvature, as you can see here, and then the noise over it, and that just multiply the noise with that curvature, right? That's basically it. Pretty simple to do and pretty okay as a result. Don't get me wrong, I still like it. However, you can make it a little better, and the way to do it, you can actually see down here that it looks a little better. And how did I do that? Well, actually is by actually adding one more thing between the curvature and the noise. So what I did, if I go here, so right now we'll look at the arm, between the noise and the curvature, I added a blur node. So the way to do this, you have to go right here to mask modifier and then add a blur or a bevel. What this basically does, let me actually go with 0 and show you. So if I have this selected, you can see that, you know, we have the black and white image that we create with a curvature. Absolutely fine, super nice. When you go to blur, what that does is actually, so by the way, the blur is added. If you set it to normal, which is the default, the effect is actually gonna be a little bit more faded, which I don't like. I don't really, you know, I'm not a big fan of that. And the overlay doesn't really work. It's add that does, in my opinion at least, the best thing to it. And the reason for it, it's because, so what a blur does, it's basically taking, you know, your white value that we have here for the curvature And that's exactly what it said. It's blurring it, making it basically fade away. And actually you can play with the strength right here. So as you can see, you can make it fade way more. And it will look way more worn, you know, on the whole surface rather than just the edge. But honestly, I didn't really like that. I want it to be a little bit. So a 0.07.5 kind of worked for me pretty well, or a 7.7 or a 0.077, which is 77. Sorry. So yeah, and then you can actually add a noise, and the noise of course is gonna be multiplied with the curvature and the added blur over it, which again gives us a pretty smooth result. Of course, basically you can add, you know, a bevel, which more or less does the same thing, kind of. You know, it still lets you to play a little bit with the fading. I'll be totally honest with you, I played with both bevel and blur, and I gotta admit I'm much more of a fan of the blur node. I think bevel in a blur, I usually use Gaussian. I just think it works better. Bevel, in my opinion, it's way too pronounced and it affects way too much. I don't really like that effect. While blur, as you can see, helps you actually, you know, get a much better smooth transition from the rust to, well, the end where the rust is no more. Is here space? Oh, it is. What creates it? Well, I just figured that out. So let's get this displacement out of the way. Is still there? Yeah, it's creating one here. So we have to really think about this one. I'm gonna set it to like super low displacement strength so that, you know, my body doesn't get all messed up. Yeah, even though I still think, yeah, it's still affecting it. So you know what? I'll take that out. It will still look good, but you know, not messing up on my geometry. It's much better. So here I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I will add a blur node right in between. Set this to add, and then just play with the strength. To see it better, at least this is the way I use it. I, you know, go to the actual results and look how it will affect everything. And you can also, you know, add one more blur at the end, which is a trick, in my opinion, that helps fade even more, so that it makes the transition even more natural. Personally, I hope that this will help you. It only helped me because I liked the rust transition. I just hope to make it a little more reasonable. I just thought it's way too contrasty, and now I think it's doing a much better way from getting from like the rust to the, well, what we kind of consider paint in this case, right? So with this actually being done, of course you can still play with the levels if you so like. That is of course up to you. Personally, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna, you know, keep them to kind of what I have. And yeah, this is kind of the new trick I found out. Good, so now we have the object fully textured. Well, let me actually turn all the textures on. Hold on. So basically, I did exactly what I told you guys. Now, there's actually one more thing I did use that I don't think I did show it to you before. Well, I explained you the what's called the method, but this is the position gradient. We did use it before, so you should know it by now. But just so you know, for this kind of transition here, I just use a position gradient so that I can actually go from a material to another. And I just use a soil to make this look like dirt. Now, with this being done, I basically have all the materials that I need, okay? That's awesome. Let me just load each and every single one of them. And now comes the part where I think Quixel Mixer makes everything actually work, right? Because here's the deal. Can you do the same thing in Blender? Basically, yeah. It might take a little more time, but sure, I mean, you can most probably get to the exact same result and there will be no problem. However, when you will have to export everything, that's where stuff becomes a little more annoying in Blender, because you don't really have a baking tool from the get-go. There are some add-ons for baking, but other than that, you have to bake by hand, and that's pretty annoying. However, Quixel Mixer, for example, doesn't have that. What you gotta do is just tell it where to save your files. So let me just go right here, and it will create a subfolder if you want. If not, just unclick that, and then you can tell it two things. First, you can tell it what to actually export, and we don't need, for example, the ambient occlusion. What we really want is the albedo, because it gives us the color, roughness, normals, and metal. At least in this case, since we know they are metallic, and sometimes just parts of them are metallic, parts are not. So that's why we want to use that. However though, what you will want to do is actually get the displacement as well, because we did use displacement for some of these things, and even though we have the normals, I usually do get the displacement just in case we need to use it. And now let's say that there's the emission, for example, which we would need for this material right here. What you can do is actually, if you know exactly which one that is, and I'll have to admit, I think it's the upper arm too, for me? Maybe? Oh no, it's the emission, I literally call it. You can actually come here by pressing on this pencil, and basically you can actually tell it, get me the emission for this one thing, because this way you can actually use this. So let's actually take this emission, and now let's export all of them. And with doing this, we will have all the textures that we've created baked, and we can take this and get it into Blender to actually well, be able to get exactly our our character. A little thing that I did not actually take into consideration, actually I did talk about it a little bit, when you paint on one side and then you see the reverse of it on the other side, the reason that happens, it's because basically you have the same body that you had mirrored, and when you did the UV unwrapping and you separated them, as I did, so I made this mistake, which I'm sorry for, because I know it's annoying. What happens is, actually let me take these two as example. Oh, I can't take these two because this is one body. Well, let me take this one, and then this one. And now they are good because I separated them. But what happened before, if I can actually take it before that, there you are. So this one has its UV unwrap here. This one has the UV unwrap in the exact same place. So the problem is their UVs are literally overlapping. Once you draw on one of them, you will also draw on the other one, but in reverse, which is annoying, and it's a big problem. Well, not necessarily a big problem, but it is a problem which we don't really want. The way you can solve this, you can select the two bodies, press tab to go into edit mode, and now A and U, and unwrap them. And now the unwrapping, it's made so that both of them can live together. Now the problem is, I already had this exported, and I'll be totally honest with you, I don't think I've ever done this before. As into modify a body that's like already there. So this should be interesting. I don't know if it will affect the materials. Okay, so they are here. Apparently it does remember everything I had, and it sticks. which is a good thing. The reason it's a good thing, I can go back to anything that is bad, like this. For example, the arms, because I didn't like that. And I can actually change that as well. So let me see if it worked, first things first, because yes, I did it, but did I actually also solve the problem? Or did I just talk? Let's give like a 320. Looks pretty good. And now it works. Before I couldn't actually draw on this side, and if you look, this one is not actually drawn onto. So I can actually put it somewhere like this, draw on top of it, and now these two have a different body. Let me just save this 1 second though. And I'm gonna go to the arms and do the same thing. So by using this method, okay, after I UV unwrapped everything, this is how my arms will look. So basically, the only thing I did is actually I was able to texture paint different stuff on each side. It just brings a little more character to our, well, character, and I mean, it just makes things a little more fun, and you can play around with the texturing a little more, which I think it's actually pretty interesting. So yeah, this is really kind of it. I'm still working to finish the last details, but I will leave you to the outro. So here we are, the end of the video. So I have to actually answer your question, because after all, the title is Quixel Mixer beating Blender when it comes to texturing? Is it my choice now? Well, yes, and well, no. Well, I know not the answer you probably wanna hear, and please don't click away just yet. I have basically the solution, and I mean an explanation. First things first, this is not the first time I'm recording this kind of conclusion, because actually it's actually hard to give such a conclusion, since Blender is the program when it comes to 3D for me, and it's the one I know the most. It's kind of hard for me to go to actually use any other texturing or any other software to begin with. So actually using Quixel Mixer was a little bit of a challenge to me. However, I cannot actually stress enough how good a texturing software is compared to a software that basically tries to do everything else. Now, that doesn't mean Blender doesn't do a great job. It's absolutely amazing, and because of that reason alone, I will actually create 2 more textures in Blender. One, it will be just to rival Quixel Mixer's texture. So I'm literally going to do a versus comparison. And 2, I will actually do a stylized texture, because honestly, I don't really know how to do it in Quixel Mixer yet. Again, I barely learned it and I still don't know too much of it, but I definitely know how to do that in Blender. Which is where I'm coming with my answer, where yes, Quixel Mixer is better, however, it is also not better. And the reason I'm saying that is Quixel Mixer is definitely more convenient, and definitely when it comes to realistic images and realistic textures, I'll probably switch to Quixel Mixer in no time. The reason being very simple. I have a lot of textures to begin with that I can use. I have basically the tools are way easier to use. You don't need to use geometry nodes or anything like that, you just need to use layers. Another reason is actually that if you want to work in the industry, or if you want to work with Substance Painter later on, Quixel Mixer is much closer to that than Blender is. And I hope Blender will do a layering system in the future. I don't think they will, but I really hope, because it would help. There are add-ons, by the way, to create that. So this is why I'm saying, first of all, Blender is not worse. And actually, honestly, yeah, if you put money in Blender, you could probably make it much better than Quixel Mixer could ever be. But then again, you can make Blender the best tool there is for everything, really, because add-ons are the things that makes Blender shine the most. Yes, Blender as a tool is incredible, but Blender with add-ons is unbeatable, if you ask me at least. However, I don't have, an infinite money to spend on Blender, and I'm not going to do that. And actually, I don't have an infinity money to spend on anything. So this is where I'm coming with this. If I have another option, which in this case is Quixel Mixer, why not use it? But even better, why not use a combination of both? Because here's the deal. If I have to do a very simple texture, I can use some Blender kit, I can use some knowledge that I have in Blender and just do that texture myself in Blender. It's way easier, and if I do it for just an animation, it definitely works. However, if it's something more complex and that I will need to bake out later on, sure, I will do it in Quixel Mixer. It's easier, way easier to bake, which is again one of the weakest things that Blender has. Again, fixable with add-ons, but I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about Blender as it is, and it comes out of the box. And unfortunately, I cannot stress enough how Quixel Mixer does beat Blender when it comes to that. And yeah, this is really the conclusion. I will definitely choose Quixel Mixer over Blender when it comes to realistic textures. Absolutely. But again, if you don't want to learn another software, Blender's more than enough. If you have some money to put in, Blender has add-ons that can make Blender much better than Quixel Mixer can ever become, probably. And also, if honestly you just want to make some stylized or some simple textures, Blender's much more than enough, and it gives you the options that any other texturing or 3D software out there can give you. It's just a matter of how much time do you want to spend, how complex will your texture be, how convenient do you want your work to be. I personally find it more convenient in Quixel Mixer, but hey, this is just me, so I don't know. But what's your opinion? Who do you think, or actually what do you think is better? Do you think Quixel Mixer actually absolutely annihilates Blender when it comes to texturing? I know this comparison has been done more times before, but I think this is one of the more complex, if you want, workflow between the two, and with a conclusion on why to use and where to use both. Because I think, again, instead of actually choosing one of them, the best option is to actually use both, because both are good in their own ways. And with that being said, thank you very much for actually watching this video, and I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please don't forget about a like, please subscribe to the channel if you found it useful, and actually again leave a comment on which program would you actually choose. And with this actually being said, I hope you guys have a great week, and see you next time. Bye guys.